How about yourself?
Thank God, thank God. Standing, still standing.
Good.
We give appreciation for. Okay, and Rachel is there. I see. Okay.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Okay, we'll have people join us in and go to my share screen. Okay. Okay. Okay, so everything is warming up as people are joining in. 10:30 exactly. Welcome everybody. Shabbat Shalom to Hollywood Temple Bethel for our services. And as people are coming in, I'm going to start our little warm up. I like to always do an opening. So I found something for the morning service, which is really, what you're supposed to say as soon as we open our eyes, which I put up on the screen for you. Modeh ani lefanecha melachai v'kayam shechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla rabba emunatecha. Those of you who remember Hebrew school days or maybe day school days, that was what we taught kids. One of the first things we would teach kids when you wake up, which was to say, I'm grateful to you, living, enduring, sovereign, for restoring my soul to me in compassion. You are faithful beyond measure. And my father explained to me the reason they used that phrasing was that it doesn't have God's name in it. So when you're waking up, you could say it without having to wash your hands first and putting on a kippah or anything like that. And I see Stacy, Cantor Stacy Morse is joining us this Shabbat. How are you doing?
Good morning. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom. How are you holding up there up in your end of the woods there?
Good. It's a beautiful
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay.
Shabbat Shalom, Karen.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
All right, Stacy. Yeah, you'll help me here in a few things. Join with me in a few things here. All right.
What book are you using, dear Rabbi?
I put it up on the screen for us.
It's
Sim
right
Shalom.
there.
Yeah. So I use the Sim Shalom, but with it's the full version that we have on which is an old version already. But yeah, I keep them up on the screen. For the most part, it's okay. There's some mistakes in the copy I have because it has Hebrew and transliteration with it, but it's okay for our purposes.
Okay.
The letters come out all right. But so I've got this group. They're going to play Modeh Ani.
Nice.
To warm up. A group called Pumbedisa.
Okay.
And then they add love your neighbors yourself after that.
מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי, חי וקיים, שהחזרת בי נשמתי, בחמלה רבה אמונתך. מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי, חי וקיים, שהחזרת בי נשמתי, בחמלה רבה אמונתך. ואהבת לרעך כמוך, ואהבת לרעך כמוך, ואהבת לרעך כמוך, זה כלל גדול בתורה. ואהבת לרעך כמוך, ואהבת לרעך כמוך, ואהבת לרעך כמוך, זה כלל גדול בתורה. זה כלל גדול בתורה.
Okay. And there's a little commercial with it that they're available for bands and weddings and so on. If you want. Lovely group, lovely group. So remember this idea, the sense of waking up in the morning, the thrill of being alive and giving appreciation and thanks to God for that. And then they add in a phrase that's used in some of the traditions before we begin the prayers. Also, we accept the idea of v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, of loving our fellow human being as ourselves. And so now we go into the Shacharit service. For those who just joined in, Cantor Stacy Morse is with us, and she's going to help out in a few parts here and there, and I'm very happy to welcome her with us. And I'm going to go ahead, though, in the same theme of a little bit back to nature type Jews. Going to go with this opening of Shochen Ad by Shmulik Frank. Really earthy Shochen Ad to wake us up for the morning. Giving praise to God in the words of the righteous and pious and the Savior.
Water? No. Why? You want water?
Ya baba 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 בקודש מוין וחוסו עלינו צדיקים בשם לישורים לא עושה מיליון יא בביי יא 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 בביי יא 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 בביי יא 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 בביי יא 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 בביי יא 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 שויכנה מוי בקודש מוי וחוסו עלינו צדיקים בשם לישורים לא עושה מילות יא בביי יא 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 בביי יא 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 בביי יא 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 בביי יא 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 בביי יא יא בפי ישורים תשרור עמו ובסיסי צדיקים תסבור ובלשוין חסידים תסקדון וכן
You take away the talit and the peyot, and you could have been in any hippie commune back in the 60s and 70s, or you could have been with the talit and peyot in Carlebach's community in Modin, or in the House of Love and Prayer in San Francisco. And still carry that feeling and that fervor with them. So our day has begun. We are awake. We're woken up, right, with that back to earth vision of the prayer in conjunction with working the land, building the earth, never separated from but part of the world. That's an important part of Jewish thinking. We continue with the opening with Yishtabach, which I put up on the prayer page for you. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu. Chagdol v'Shmai Shemayim U'Va'aretz K'nechad Na'einu. Merachot v'odot me'atav yarolam baruch atar Adonai el melchadot v'tishbachot el hodot Adonai niflot habocher b'shir zimra melech chai holamim. Cantor Stacy, I didn't mention this. I gave you a few things in advance, but the Baruch Hu, you know the one that goes, can you do that for us?
Yay, na, 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 na. Yay, na, 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 na. Yay, na, 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 na. Yay, na, 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 na. Yay, na, 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 na. Yay, na, 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 na. Yay, na, 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 na. Yay, na, 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 na. Baruch Hu et Adonai, HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamavorach Olam Vorach
HaMevorach, Le'olam Vaed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach, Le'olam Vaed. Baruch Adonai, Le'olam Vaed.
Thank you very much. And we give praise for God as the creator of both light and darkness, of peace and of all that exists. And in that theme, we continue with the El Adon. And I have this El Adon for us. One of the more traditional melodies as we've done it.
כל המעשים ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה גאולו וטובו מלא עולם דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו המתגאה חיות הקודש ונענע בכבוד על המרכבה זכות ומשול לפני כיסו חסד ורחמים לכבודו טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל כוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה נאה זיום בכל העולם שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם עושים באימה רצון קונם פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמו צהלה ורינה לזכר מלכותו קרא לשמש ויזרח אורה והתקין צורת הלבנה שבח נותנים לו קוצב מרום תפארת וגדולה שרפים וחיות ואופני הקודש.
Okay. I put the mics on mute. Somebody's phone was coming across. If you don't have any feedback on your phone, go ahead. You can unmute yourselves again. We're going to continue. And that was a nice one because I have the Hebrew and the English and the transliteration in front of you, so it made it easy to follow along. And a nice, simple, rhythmic chant for us. And we continue with the vision of the angels in heaven as they give their praise to God in the words of Yeshayahu, Isaiah, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. And then as the wild and fiery seraphim answer, blessed in the words of Ezekiel, blessed is the Lord from his divine habitation. So we continue. Back up one line here. It starts at the bottom of the page. כולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים רשות זה לזה להקדיש לעצמם בנחת רוח ספנים הקדושה כולם כי אחריהם ביראה קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות ארץ כבודו אופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גם מתנסים לעומת שרפים גם שבחים ואומרים ברוך כבר אדוני ממקום ברוך He's made the great lights, for his mercy lasts forever, so cause a new light to shine upon us and upon Zion. May we all delight in its splendor. Blessed are you, O Lord, creator of the lights. Or Chadash Hatzion Ta'iv, Iskefalon Me'era Li'oro, Baruch Adonai Yotzeh, Hamorod. We're all going to join in on the Hava Rabbah together. Cantor Stacy. Stacy, if you open your mic, come and join, lead us, singing with me on Ahava Rabbah. You know how we do it? If not, I'll hum a few bars and you'll follow me, all right? All together. Ahavtanu
Adonai Eloheinu, Chen Gidula V'Tera, Kamata Aleinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Ba'avoteinu, Shabatu Becha, Avinu Malkeinu, Vatem Abdem Chalkechayim, Kein Techanenu Tlamdeinu, Avinu Haracham, Amracham Aleinu, V'Divinu Lehavin, Lehavin Shmoa, Lilmod Elamed, Lishmor Elasod, Ulkayem Kol Divrei Talmud Toratecha Be'ava.
And we pick up it B'Ha'er Einenu, B'Ha'er Einenu, B'Toratecha, B'Dabek Libeinu, B'Mitzvotecha, V'Yachei Le'Laveinu, Le'Ahava Yira Et Shemecha, V'Lo Nevosh Le'Olam Ha'ed, V'Lo Nevosh Le'Olam Ha'ed, Ki V'Shem Odshecha Hagadol V'Hagibor V'Atachnu Nagila V'Nismecha Nagila V'Nismecha B'Shuatecha V'Havienu L'Shalom V'Abak Anfot Haaretz V'Tolicheinu Kamemiut Le'Artzeinu Ki Apoel Yeshot Ata Uvanu V'Chatam V'Cholam Keiraftanu L'Shem Chagad Selah Selah Be'emet Nahadad Lecha Uyachelcha Uyachel B'Yahava Baruch Adonai Abochei B'Moseh B'Yahava. Now we come to the Shema. Cantor Stacy, you had sent me a recording once of a Shema, and it was what you had learned from your mother. You want to reprise that for us?
Sure.
Please.
Slightly different. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael,
Adonai Eloheinu,
Adonai
Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Adonai.
And then Be'ahavta. Go ahead with Be'ahavta.
Be'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'chayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzacha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha v'lechtecha v'derech uv'shoftecha v'chomecha וקשרתם לאמור על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Let's continue silently. And we continue, we take the tzitzit in hand, and we continue with the last paragraph of the Shema. We take the tzitzit. Vayomer Adonai Moshe lemor, Haber el bnei Yisrael, v'ata lehem v'asu lehem tzitzit, al kanfei bigdehem ledorotam, v'natnu al tzitzit, hakanaf betil techelet, v'alechem letzitzit, uritem atos chatem ekom mitzvot Adonai, v'asitem otam, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם לאחריכם אשר אתם זנים אחריהם למען תזכרו ועשיתם כל מצוותיי אתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אדוני אליכם אמת. The Lord your God is true and faithful and supporting. And we give testimony to that, the sense of God's support in recalling the Exodus and the freeing of the slaves at the Red Sea, and the sang that our people sang, the song of liberation. You continue to the bottom of the page in front of you. Moshe uvnei Yisrael l'chanu shirab simcha rabba v'yamru chulam Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi kamocha nedor b'kodesh karati lo Osei pehele Shira chadash shivchu ge'ulim Shimcha Asifat hayaham Shira chadash shivchu ge'ulim Shimcha Asifat hayaham Yachad kulam hodu yachad kulam hodu b'mlechu b'yam le'olam va'ed Tzur Yisrael kuma b'yazat Yisrael Ovdechenu mecha Yehuda b'Yisrael V'aleinu Adonai tzevaot shemo kedosh Yisrael Baruch Adonai. Now we come to the Amidah, and for this Amidah, I wanted to shift modes. We've predominantly Ashkenazi congregation. We have quite a few Sephardic members. We have certainly our Iranian congregation members that come and join along once in a while. Also, so I found this Amidah, the opening of the Amidah, by a Chazan out of Brazil, who does it as actually as a teaching tool. So, and he has a nice, pleasant, soft chant. Usually the very bum, 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 bum is a little bit more melodic. So I thought it'd be a nice one to use for the opening. It'll be the opening of the Amidah, then the Kedusha will pick up on our own. And so I'm going to go ahead. Here he is. So he's going to introduce each section. Easy to pray. Notice it gives you all the translations you want.
Baruch
Adonai, שפתי תפתח, ופי יגיד תהילתך.
Baruch אתה
ברוך אתה השם אלוקינו ואלוקי אבותינו, אלוקי אברהם, אלוקי יצחק ואלוקי יעקב, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, קונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה השם מגן אברהם.
אתה גיבור, אמרנו חיים מייסון זרע והושיע.
לעולם השם מחיה מתים, אתה רב להושיע.
משב הרוח ומוריד הגשם.
מוריד עטל.
Now.
משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה השם מחיה המתים.
Now we continue with the Kedusha together. נקרשם חבלם, כשם שמה כשמותו בשמי מרום, כתוב היה נביאך, כרזה זה ויאמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, ארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, ערדי וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת צרפים, ותמברך יאמרו, ברוך כבר אדוני מנקומו. עמים קמך, והכנו תופיע, ותמלוך אלוקים חכים אנחנו לך, מתי תמלוך בציון, קרב ימינו ותשכון, ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים, עירך לדור ודור נצח נצחים, ועינינו תראנה, תראנה מלכותך כדבר בשירי עוזך, עיד דוד משיח צדקך, ימלוך הרי לעולם אלייך, הללויה. Cantor, why don't we do a refrain? I'll do Ledor Vador, you sing back. Ledor Vador.
Ledor Vador.
You know what I'm trying to do?
Yes, there we go. I'm unmuted. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so do Ledor Vador.
Ledor Vador.
Ledor Vador.
Ledor Vador.
Ledor Vador. Nagi Gad Lecha. Ledor Vador.
Ledor Vador.
Ledor Vador.
Ledor Vador.
Ledor Vador. Nagi Gad Lecha. ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך, קדושתך נקדיש. ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך, קדושתך נקדיש. לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור נגיד לך, לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור נגיד לך, כי המלך גדול, קדוש אתה, גדול וקדוש אתה, לי 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 ברוך אתה אל הקדוש. And we'll continue silently.
ישמח מוישה ומת
קראת לו, כי זה ספר פרשת לך. Okay, now Cantor, Chazan Stacy. Those who just joined in, I'm happy to have Chazan Stacy Morris, who was a Cantor 2 years back for holidays with us this Shabbat morning. I said, we like to do a reprise of one of the popular sing-along parts of the Amidah, Yismach Moshe, or Vishamar or Simshalam. What do you want to do?
Oh, I kind of like, I don't know, I kind of like Vishamru.
Then let's go to Vishamar.
Vishamru.
I'm going to put it back up on the screen for us.
I don't know why.
You gotta go there.
Give me 1 second. Here we go, the bottom of the screen, and then we'll go to the next page. Go ahead, it's yours. Take it.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורת המריד עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורת המריד עולם בני ובני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורת המריד עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת השבת ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורת המריד עולם וביום השביעי וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורת המריד עולם.
Very good. One of the wonders of doing services by Zoom is there's always delay. So, and I lead, then you hear what I hear and come back 2 seconds later. So we got an echo effect, but it's nice. It's nice. It's so much nicer, even if everybody's off beat and rhythm, than to have everybody on mute all the way, because this way we know we've got people along. Yeah. So it's always good. Always good. All right. So now we go. This is our practice now, since the times of Zoom, to go and do a section study to transition between the Shacharit service to the Torah service. So you go to Pirkei Avot, And what is this? There we go. And we've been doing a series on Hillel. And this one, more or less, we can run as one straight through. This is a commercial for Weight Watchers. It says, "Marbe basar," the more flesh, the more worms at the end. It says, why pile it on? Why pile it on? Oh, you're going to get more worms at the end, right? Not a very good thought, not a very pleasant thought. Some of the commentators want to say, why should we worry about it? We won't feel anything anyway. To which the answer is, but the soul hangs around for a little bit, sees it, and doesn't feel good. Marbe nechasim, marbe da'aga. More property, more worries. Why should you worry about having land here or land there or a house here or a house there? You're going to have to worry about maintenance, upkeep, robbers, thefts. Why worry? Marbe nashim, marbe kshafim. All right, you're the rich guy, King Solomon. You got plenty of money for plenty of wives. They're not going to have anything to do. They're going to be bored. They're going to get involved in kishafim, witchcraft. Marbe shfachot. Are you very wealthy? You're going to get yourself slaves, women slaves. Marbe zima. They're going to go pay hanky-panky because they've got nothing else to do. Marbe avadim, marbe gazel. You're going to have more slaves because you're very wealthy. They're just going to be robbing each other. They're going to be robbing you. What do you want? All right. There's all this pursuit of wealth, and some of the comments say, why in this particular order? It's in a pyramid of wealth. They say, well, what happens, right? You're building up property. You're eating too well. As you're eating too well, you're buying more property. As you're buying more property, you think you have money for more wives. You got more money for wives. They want maidservants. The maidservants need the menservants to help them, right? So that's his take on capitalism, the problem of capitalism. So now, what's the answer? What's the answer? Marbet Torah, marbet Chaim. Okay, leave the business. Not that he's anti-business completely or anything like that, but leave the business aside. Marbet Torah, marbet Chaim. You study Torah, you gain life. Marbe yeshiva, marbe chachma. So it's not only studying on your own, but yeshiva, sitting in the academy, you're going to get wise, because in the academy, it's not just, right, studying Torah is sort of passive on your own, but in the academy with back and forth, and you're increasing your intellect, you're debating, you're getting wisdom. Marbe etzah, marbe tfuna. You're involved with people who know stuff. You're going to involve, you ask them questions, you get an influence and advice, but you gain understanding. Marbet tzedakah, marbet shalom. You do tzedakah, giving, charity, care to other people in need of it. Marbet shalom, right? Why build up all this wealth? You want it so that you can give tzedakah, marbet shalom, greater peace, right? So that's that. We might as well finish up and find out kana shem tov, kana latzmo. Right? If you acquire a good name, it is to your own benefit. Tov shem mishem and tov, that's from Proverbs. A good name is better than the finest oils. Or Othello, the famous line that he who steals my name, he who steals my purse steals trash, but he who steals my name steals all. Right? So shem tov, yafeh, but it's only for you. Kanalo divrei Torah, but when you acquire words of Torah, you acquire the knowledge of Torah, you buy for yourself, you acquire for yourself the eternal life, right? That is where eternity is to be found. Okay, so words of wisdom for us from Hillel, Sage Hillel. And we're going to continue with the Kaddish the Rabbanan. Let me pull it up a second. Once in a while, we need to be reminded, we have to take a break. Not that the Torah is against, or rabbis are against the pursuit of business, very in favor of it when it's constructive, but we have to know when to stop and when to deal with things that build our souls.
Yeah, about if one acquires a good name, what I'm hearing more and more is what other people think of me is none of my business. I've been hearing that more and more and more. Back in the old days, we were worried about what everybody thought about our name, about...
Right. There's something to be said about acquiring a good name, because that is one of the things that helps us keep an anchor and a balance in our behavior. The good opinion of others. Today in the internet period, everybody is denouncing everybody to the point that we don't care anymore. So, because it's so much easier to attack someone than to build someone. That's the very sad part
Always.
about what the
Yeah,
internet has done for us.
we are good
Let's
at.
get a Kaddish to Rabbanan now. I have it on the screen in front of it. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Amad Ibrach Chilutei v'Amnith Malchutei v'Chayachonu v'Mechonu v'Chayi l'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agalav Zman Karim v'Im'umein Yehi Shmei Rabbo V'rach Olam V'Maya Yibarach v'Yishtabach v'Yipo'av v'Tamam Yitnasei Yitadav Yitaleh v'Yitalal Shemei Yekutsha Berichu Leila Mikol Berchata v'Shirata Dush B'chata v'Nechmata Damyon B'Amav Yimru Amen Al Yisrael v'Arabanan Tamidei Hom Aktov Tamidei Hom Commando Skim Baraita Diva Dahadei V'Di V'Chol Ata V'Ata El Hon L'Chon Shlomo Rabba China V'Chis Rachim Haina Richim Rizone Brichat Bukonim V'Korim Ruhon Di V'Shmai V'Yimavein Ei Shlomo Rabba Min Shemayim B'Chaim Aleinu V'Koyse V'Yimavein Ose Shalom B'Mama Huya Se Shalom Aleinu V'Koyse V'Yimru Amen. And a reminder, Shabbat morning brought to you by Hollywood Temple Bethel, your local and international synagogue. I'm going to stop the screen share for a second so we can all have a window view of everybody here. Greet everybody this Shabbat before we go ahead. And those of you who just came on, Cantor Stacy Morris is with us, and so she's been helping us out.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay.
Shabbat
And now we're
Shalom.
going to go back to share screen. Go ahead with our Torah service.
Ein kamocha.
And we go in with Ein Kamocha. And the ark is open inside the chapel for us. And figuratively, we're taking out a Torah. Let's all join in. Ein Kamocha ve'Elohim Adonai ve'ein k'masecha v'machutcha machut kol amim v'mishatecha b'chol dor v'ador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai yimloch le'olam v'olam Adonai oz le'amo yitein Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom Avarachamim eitiva b'tzoncha et Zion Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Ki v'cha le'avatachnu Melech Eram v'nisa Adon Olamim Vayiven Saron vayomem Moshe Kuma Adonai me'achutz oivecha ve'yanusun mesanecha mipanecha Ki mitzion teitzei Torah Ki mitzion teitzei Torah Udevar Adonai miYerushalayim Baruch shenotam Torah le'amo Baruch shenotam Torah le'amo Le'amo Yisrael b'kedush ato with the prayer.
Alma.
Alma. Be'anarachet Shmei Kadisha Kadisha Yakira Ana Amadush Bechan Be'anarachet Be'lishmei Kadisha Kadisha Yakira Ana Amadush Bechan Yehera Akadama V'tiftach libi v'oraita V'tashlim mishalin delibi V'liba l'chol amach Yisrael V'tavu chayin v'lishnacham Amen. And now we continue with the Shema as we take out the Torah. Cantor, if you lead Shema, then we'll reply. And then you lead Echad and we'll reply.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Together. Shema Yisrael Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. And go ahead, lead us.
Lecha
Adonai
Gadol
Tiferet Ve'netzach
Gadol
Kichol
Kichol
Bashamayim
Bashamayim
U'aretz
Kichol
Kichol Bashamayim
Bashamayim
U'aretz
Lecha
Adonai
Adonai
Amlacha Piamid Na'aseh
Ramamo
Romemu
Ramamo
Adonai
Adonai
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
Ve'ishtachavu
Ve'istachvu Kadosh Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Adonai Eloheinu.
Thank you. It's nice to have a, give and take and the voice in here. We're now at the Torah service, and we're in the portion of Vayigash. We're now in the Joseph story. Everything is now coming together. Joseph faces his brothers. Judah comes up and says, you cannot withhold this young Benjamin from his dear father. He will die. Then Joseph can't hold himself anymore. You know this, he breaks down. He comes to them. He sends out all the Egyptians from the room, and he admits to him, I'm Yosef Achicha, I am Joseph, your brother, which was one of the last popes. Maybe it was John Paul, or he comes, visits the synagogue, I don't know where it was, and he says, Ani Yosef Achicha, I'm Joseph, your brother. In other words, we are bringing back together these lost brothers. He's talking about the Jewish and the Catholic tradition, but here's Joseph and his brothers physically. And then he tells Pharaoh, this is my family. And Pharaoh says, good, come on, they're great. If you're great, they must all be great. Sends messengers down to his father, and father says, if Joseph is still alive, that's it. That's all I want to know. I've got to see him, right? And then that's where we're going to be beginning at our reading today. And then it is Jacob on his way to go to the land of Egypt, and he's disturbed because the last time he left the land of Israel, he's stuck in Syria for umpteen years because of his father-in-law. And now finally, when he comes to settle back in the land of Israel, now he has to leave again. So God comes and says, do not be afraid, because you've become a great nation. And Joseph himself will put his hands on your eyes to close your eyes. Very, very warm touch. And so they all go in the carriages that Joseph has sent them. They come down to Egypt, the children, the granddaughters, right? Ben Ito, Benotav, Benot Banav, Kol Zarot. Now, here's a good question. Notice that it says his sons and his grandsons, right? Bana, your line 7, sons and grandsons. Benotav, Benot Banav, his daughters and his granddaughters. If we go down here, how many daughters does he have? Well, this gives us an account of Shivim Nefesh, 70 individuals who are going to be in Egypt altogether. They count them up and you actually come to 69, and so they have to come up with the 70. But who are the names? There's Dinah, and that's the only daughter, and she's mentioned in here. Dinah, she's the only daughter that we've got. And what about granddaughter? One granddaughter is in here. And I'll pull her up here, and you'll see one granddaughter. Up. Where is she? I'll find her. There we go. One daughter, Sarah, the sister of the sons of Asher. They don't say the daughter of Asher, their sister. And the rabbi's going to question, well, it's through a different mother and so on. But, or a different father, we don't know. But there's only one daughter and one granddaughter. But here it says daughters and granddaughters. So the rabbis say, we assume that all of the sons had twins. So that as they were being born, they were born with a twin, a female twin. So where are they? They're married. All right, they're married. And if they're married, where are they? staying with their husbands' families in the land of Israel. It's the sons. It's the sons go down, but the married ones are staying back. Okay, that's one postulation. The other postulation is, well, maybe they died before they got there, but that's not clear from the language. So we must ask the question. We know daughters' names. I'm sorry to say, daughters weren't counted when they started recording names. So now, why do they mention two names? If none of the others are mentioned, why these two? Well, Dinah, we know why, because she's the one who got in trouble with Shechem. And if we didn't mention her, we wouldn't understand the story of Shechem. But what about Serach, Bat Asher? Serach, who nobody knows anything about. Nobody knows anything about her. And so there is a very lovely story, because rabbis have to figure out why she's in there. And they say when Moses leaves Egypt, he has promised, right? The children of Israel were told they had to take Joseph's bones with them. And so around this comes a beautiful story. Pharaoh knows the children of Israel had sworn to bring Joseph back to the land of Israel with them. Jacob was buried in Israel. They were allowed to go back and forth. When Joseph died, they were no longer allowed out. Joseph is buried. Where is Joseph buried? And so the answer is that Pharaoh hid Joseph's body, knowing that without Joseph, the children of Israel would not be allowed to leave because they have to fulfill their oath. And so the story is that Sarah is the only one of the children of Jacob, or the grandchildren of Jacob, who was still alive at the time of Moses. She was the only one who knew where Joseph was buried. And hence she led Joseph to the gravesite. And there's all sorts of stories where he's actually buried under the Nile River, and she has Joseph's cup, throws him into the river, and the coffin floats back up miraculously to the top. Okay, so we have to explain why, right? How'd she get in? Another thing, very interestingly, when Joseph brings the brothers in front of the Pharaoh, he tells them, tell them that you are sheep herders, so he will settle you in the land of Goshen. Where's the land of Goshen? It is the borderland between Egypt and the Sinai. Why would Joseph want them to settle there? Well, he said, well, you're primarily cattle herders and sheep herders. Grazing land. Egypt doesn't have that much grazing land, actually, right? It's agricultural land along the narrow strip of the Nile, going all the way down. But your flat lands where there's a lot of grazing is really where the Nile meets the Mediterranean. And Goshen is that part where the Nile meets the Mediterranean, very well watered, fertile grasslands, perfect for cattle. And why would Joseph want to make that? Because he knows that they have to return. He's already bringing them in, he's preparing them for the return. And there's another thought. Why would he want them there on the border of Egypt? Joseph's in the middle of Egypt. He's very Egyptianized. He's got an Egyptian name. He dressed like an Egyptian. His two kids have Egyptian names. He's married to an Egyptian woman. He's concerned that his brothers will not get trapped in Egyptian civilization. So if they're on the border outside of, or sort of facing the land of Israel, not only are they closer back to the land of Israel, which will be important when they leave Egypt, but also they will be separate from Egyptian civilization. As much as he is Egyptianized, he's concerned that they should be separated, right? Interesting point, interesting point. A lot of commentators ask this question. Is Joseph not the example of a typical assimilated Jew? He looks like an Egyptian, talks Egyptian, where's his Jewishness? And then other commentators say his Jewishness is in that he's always making reference to God. He understands he's where he is because of God. And that is Joseph's greatness, that although he's Egyptianized, he recognizes his Jewish position, his Jewishness. Some commentators say that he's very much similar to Disraeli, Benjamin Disraeli, right? Who really was raised as a Christian, but never forgot that he was Jewish and never forgot to let the English know that that's who he was. Oh, that's our thought for the commentary. And now we have two birthday kids today. Two birthday kids. So I want to dedicate the reading to our birthday girls here. We have Rosa Rosenberg and Barbara Moorman celebrating birthdays this week. Rosa, when is your birthday?
My birthday is on Tuesday.
Tuesday. And then Barbara?
Tomorrow is her birthday.
Can you hear us, Barbara? Can open the mic. Okay, you're on Tuesday. So in honor
Tomorrow.
of tomorrow. Okay, so in honor of the two of you, this happy birthday in Hebrew. And here's our desserts. You have to imagine.
היום יום הולדת, היום יום הולדת, היום יום הולדת, גם לי גם לך. היום יום הולדת, היום יום הולדת, לי גם לך. חג לה שמח, זר לא פורח, היום יום הולדת, גם לי גם לך. חג לה שמח, היום יום הולדת, גם לי גם לך.
היום יום הולדת, היום יום הולדת,
היום יום הולדת, גם לי גם לך.
היום יום הולדת, היום יום הולדת,
היום יום הולדת, גם לי גם לך. חג לה שמח,
זר לא פורח,
היום יום הולדת, גם לי גם לך. חג לה שמח.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Oh, good.
Our birthday celebration isn't going to look like that, I can tell you. right?
yeah.
Wow.
I'm waiting till we get back live in place. The vaccines are coming out
I know.
slowly, but we'll get to it. Probably another 2 months before most of us will get the shots because
I think we're not going to be getting any shots till March or April. And in fact, I think this pandemic is going to continue all the way to July before we get enough herd.
So, but those of us who are over 65, we're going to be fourth in ranking.
I think
Fourth in ranking.
the
Over
third-
75, you guys are going to be
Yeah.
lining up very soon. In Israel, they've been taking in everybody 60 and over, and they're almost finishing with that from day one.
Wow.
They got the medicine the beginning of the week, and they're just shooting everybody. And they think by end of February, they'll have the whole country covered. They were maybe the first country to be covered completely.
I think here it'll be probably around June or July.
Yeah, they made the
Big
they did the
difference.
smart part. The United States put money into the development, but didn't think about buying up in advance.
Right.
Because Israel just bought.
But Rabbi,
put
there's a
money
big
up front.
difference. Rabbi, there's a big difference in a population of 300 million
Yeah, well,
and a
that's it.
few million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also when you need the manufacture, not just the development. I think that's where. So they rushed in, bought, quick, paid cash, and went.
Canada
Everybody
bought
could catch
paid
them.
cash. Rabbi, Canada bought paid cash for its entire population. It's not going to get it for the entire population until April.
Not till
So-
April.
Not until
Yeah.
April.
Wow.
And they paid cash up front for the
Upfront.
entire population a month or two ago. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I am
still-
predicting.
and it's less than 40 million people living there. So,
I know, yeah, that's surprising. Well, it could be
Yeah.
that, it depends on whose aunt or uncle or cousin is sitting inside the company that has a relative who makes the connection.
No, we've got wealthy people in
Yeah.
Beverly Hills that are willing to pay $10,000
I know, it's not helping.
right now
Yeah.
and saying no.
No,
you
but it's by
can't.
country, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
they
Seems
have-
how the countries are lining up.
They
to
have
it.
defense too, but-
Okay, so we're waiting,
Yeah.
we're waiting. Once we get it,
Yeah.
we'll all get back together. So
Yeah.
let us go ahead and my birthday girls here. Why don't we give you the honor of the Aliyah? And
Thank you, Rabbi.
lead us in the blessings. Baruch, go ahead.
Baruch hu et Adonai.
Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach L'olam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaed.
Leolam Vaed.
Adonai
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shebach mikol ha'olim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
So we'll start with our reading. Pull back up. We're going to do the this the middle aliyah, starting with verse 28, the end of chapter 45, and into 46, verse 7. Vayomer Yisrael Avod Yosef ben Chai el Chaverena beterem amud. Vayisa Yisrael v'chol ashelo v'yavo be'er Shaba v'yizbach tzvachim lehei aviv v'yitzchak.
Yes.
Vayomer Elohim Yisrael b'marot halayla vayomer Yaakov vayomer hineni. Vayomer Anochi ha'el Elohei avicha al tira merda Mitzrayma ki legoy gedol simcha sham. Anochi ered imcha Mitzrayma v'anochi alcha gam alo v'Yosef yoshit yado alinecha. V'yikam Yaakov miber Shava v'yisau b'nei Yisrael et Yaakov avihem v'tapam v'tnei Shem baglot asher shalach paro l'seit otam. V'yichud miknehem u'rechusham asher rachashu be'eretz Kenaan v'vo Mitzrayim Yaakov v'kol zaro ito. Banavu bnei banav banata banav ito benotavu benot banav kozaro hevi eito mitzrayma. And we're going to continue now with prayer for all those who are ill. I pray for the health and speedy healing. Mishaberach avotenu v'cham Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Sarif Karchev Leah, Yurech, Rapet, Cholim, may the Holy One who bless our answers, Abram, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarabek, Rachel, and Leah. Bless Esther Lisheva, Perchas Berteskovsky, Miriam Leodorf, Vyasa Ben Galina, Moisey Kelchik, Mindy Levin Pfeiffer, Jennifer Levins, Ronnie Duran, Harriet Levins, Moisey Ben Manya, Barbara Mormon, Esther Gerson, Joe Alexander, Robert Drato, Roger Rosen, Richla Flalo, Jenny Drato, Michael Schinder, Susan Tuchman, Shirley Marco, Fira Feinberg, Judy Alkali, Richard Zeller, Lavin Masha Ben Sarah, this Jason, Leba Batsara, Hannah Batsara, Eliyahu Ben Chana, Herb Mormon, Rena Sepian, Shoshana Batsara, Hannah Sarah, Leah Batkel, Hannah Sarah Batkela, Alta, Ellen Whalen, Hayar Nesti, Sophie, the friend of Judy Alkali, and all those who are afflicted by the COVID-19 virus and by any other afflictions. Are in our thoughts and prayers. The Holy One send them healing both in body and in mind to them and to the whole house of Israel, to all who are afflicted. Let us all say Amen.
Amen.
And we like to sing our Mishaberach, the Debbie Friedman melody. Cantor, would you lead us with this? I've got the words up on the screen, the Mishaberach, the English and Hebrew paraphrase.
Mishaberach Avoteinu Akor HaBracha Leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imoteinu Akor HaBracha Lavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Amen.
For a second, I realized I ran through into the Mishaberach without giving time for us to add names of individuals. So I just put the shares, our screens up in front. Joe, I know you always have names for us, John Alexander.
David Mordcha, Ben Yehuda Noach, Sima Harlev, Aronin, Der Harlev, Susan Feinberg, Sherman Lipman, Esther Rachel Batsiva, Laban Moshe Ben Sarah, and Shlomo Ben Lazar.
Bracha Bat Hadassah, and Adina Ariel, and Catherine, and my neighbor who just who's just doing the COVID, and Hacholim. Bless. Anybody else?
Yeah, Jacob Ben Suzanne.
Anyone else?
Any
Oh,
other?
Rachel Bet Ventura.
Bracha Bat Ventura. Go ahead.
Julian Eisner, Ron Rothman, Tito and Gabi Gorodischer.
Somebody else?
Any other names?
Yeah, Wendy Keller.
Wendy Keller. Okay, so all of them in our prayers, in our hearts, and in our minds for good and speedy recovery.
Bless those in need of healing.
Go ahead.
With refuah shlema, the renewal of
the
body, the renewal
of the
spirit, and
let us
say
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. And now we go to the Haftarah. Let's go right ahead.
Rabbi, how about for the prayer for Israel?
Yeah, after the Haftarah. Right into
After
the
the
Haftarah for a second,
Oh, yeah.
briefly. The Haftarah reading from Yechezkel, who's writing at the time of destruction of the first temple and predicting the return. That is his, we'll say, the main pitch for Yechezkel. Okay. And a beautiful metaphor that he has for us. He looks at the destruction. He says, why were the two kingdoms destroyed? Because they were against each other all the time. So he says instead, let's take the metaphor of Judah and Joseph, right? Those two branches of the house of Jacob, as if they were sticks. One stick by itself is easily broken. We put the two together, they're not easily broken. Joseph by himself is weak. The brothers by themselves are weak, right? That's the tie-in with the Torah reading. Together they are healthy and strong. And so Ezekiel is looking to the return. He says in the restoration, our broken tribes will be back together as one, unbreakable. That's his prophecy. So I'll read a few lines from Yechezkel for the Shabbat. וידבר אדוני אלי לאמור, ואתה בן אדם, קח לך עץ אחד, וכתוב עליו ליהודה, ובני ישראל חבריו, ולקח עץ אחד וכתוב עליו ליוסף, עץ אפרים וכל בית ישראל חבריו. ויקרב אותם אחד אל אחד, לך לעץ אחד, ויהיו לאחדים בידיך. כאשר יאמרו אליך בני עמך לאמור, הלא תגיד לנו מה אלה לך, דבר עליהם כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, הנה אני לוקח את עץ יוסף, אשר ביד אפרים, שבטי ישראל חבריו, ונתתי אותם עליו, את עץ יהודה ועשיתם לעץ אחד ואחד בידי, ויהיו העצים אשר תכתוב עליהם בידך לעיניהם. ודבר עליהם כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, הנה אני לוקח את בני ישראל מבין הגויים שהלכו שם וקיבצתי אותם מסביב והבאתי אותם אל אדמתם. ועשיתי אותם לגוי אחד בארץ בהר ישראל ומלך אחד יהיה לכולם למלך ולא יהיה עוד לשני גויים ולחצו עוד לשתי ממלכות עוד. Jews always set against ourselves too often, split against each other. Ezekiel's reminding us, whatever our disputes, when we are together, we cannot be destroyed. So we face, as usual, historically, those who would be against us. We need to pull together as much as we can, despite the disagreements and disputes we have among us. We continue now, the prayer for the United States, which we very much need, prayer for health, well-being, economic prosperity, which is so important. We cannot keep people alive and well if the country is not prosperous with or without medication. So we pray for our country. Let's all journey in together. Read with me. I have this prayer up on the screen. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its governance, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry, safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
For the people of Israel, we go ahead with the prayer for Israel, this with several cantors joining in with an orchestrated background for it as well.
Avinu, Avinu, שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו. אבינו, אבינו, שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו.
Israel.
ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו, הגן עליה ורד חסדך, ופרוס עליה סוכות שלך.
ניצחון תיאטרם. חזק 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 את ידי ראשיה, חזק את ידי שריה, ועטרת ניצחון תיאטרם את תיאטרם. ונתת שלום, שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם ליושביה.
Beautiful composition. I'm trying to figure out what structure they are in. And it's one of the main synagogues in New York. I don't know.
In New
Can't
York?
figure it out because it's too hard to see. But what's interesting is you've got these three cantors. Hershtik, just straight traditional modern Orthodox to say. Then Azi Schwartz, who is the cantor of the Park Avenue Synagogue, which is conservative. And next to him is a Hasidic cantor. You can tell by the peyot and the absence of a tie. Hasidim don't like ties. I think it reminds them of tying a cross. So, that's number one. So has no problem about being seen in public, the Hasid with the conservative. The other thing is he's in a prayer for the state of Israel. Hasidim generally originally were against recognizing the state of Israel. And it's basically an indication that increasingly even Hasidism has come to accept that, not just as the fact that there's a government called the State of Israel, but it actually is part and parcel of Jewish destiny, let's say. So that's a very big sea change among Hasidim, and the fact that he's there is a sign of that. So we're going to return the Torah to the Ark.
That's the Portuguese synagogue in
Montreal.
There's New York City.
No, they're all cold. It's the famous Portuguese synagogue in Holland.
In Holland?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, so maybe they're overseas.
It's the most
Just look at all the chandeliers.
The lit candle chandeliers, and everybody has coats on. It's in the Netherlands is Holland, right? The city is it's a very famous synagogue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
The Portuguese synagogue, yeah.
The Portuguese synagogue in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. So let's go ahead. That's why I couldn't figure out it was in New York City. They said New York cantors. I see, but they're
right.
there for the concert.
They're all New York cantors.
So we're going to return our Torah to the Ark, Yahavilu, and then I have the Havol Adonai, beautiful rendition from a Spanish or a Latin-based group, Comunidad Amihai, singing it for us, the Havul Adonai. So together we'll join in. Yalalu Hashem Adonai, Kinaskav Shemo Levado, Hodo Eretz V'Shamayim, Vayarem Keren Le'amot, Tehila Halecha Chasihidahav, Ivnei Yisrael Ankerovo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah.
מזמור לגאווה.
All right, we continue now. Return the Torah to the Ark. It's Chaim He. Captain Morris. Yeah, I'll post. I'll send you the playlist. I'll let you see it. But we'll go back. It's Chaim He. Would you lead us, please?
It's Chaim He.
Yeah, go ahead. Are you on?
Who?
I don't hear you.
Who you? It's
Chaim He. למחזיקים בה, ותומכך מאושה, דרכך דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיך שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש
Kadesh Yameinu, Kadesh Yameinu, Thank you. And let's go right into Enke Eloheinu in the Spanish.
Enke Eloheinu, Enke Adonenu, Enke Malkeinu, Enke Moshiachenu. Non como nuestro Dios, non como nuestro Señor, non como nuestro Rey, non como nuestro Salvador. Mi Eloheinu, mi Adonenu, mi Malkeinu, mi Moshiachenu. ¿Quién como nuestro Dios? ¿Quién como nuestro Señor? ¿Quién como nuestro Rey? ¿Quién como nuestro Salvador? No del Eloheinu, no del Adonai, no del Malkeinu, no del Moshiachenu. Lo haremos a nuestro Dios, lo haremos a nuestro Señor, lo haremos a nuestro Rey, lo haremos a nuestro Salvador. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Bendito nuestro Dios, bendito nuestro Señor, bendito nuestro Rey, bendito nuestro Salvador. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Adonenu, Tú sos nuestro Dios, tú sos nuestro Señor, tú sos nuestro Rey, tú sos nuestro Salvador. Atahu Shektiru Avoteinu Lefanecha Eketore Nasamim La 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 la
And just a second. Okay, and we go ahead. There we go. Aleinu, let's join in Aleinu. There we go. Aleinu Shabbat Ladon Hakol, Ategiru Latzei Breshit, Shelo Sanake Haratzot, Velo Samanu Mishpat Adama, Shelo Samchakenu Kahem, Vigor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam, V'anachnu Korim U'mishtachavim U'odim, Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shenu Teshamayim V'yased Haaretz, Moshe Mikara B'Shamayim Mimal, U'shchinatu Zo, B'gavei Meromim, V'Eloheinu Einon, Emem Malkeinu Ebezuloto, Kakatu B'Torah, Yadata Yom V'Hashemota Elevavecha, Ki Adonai B'Shamayim Mimal, Yalaretz Mitachateno. And we just continue the last line of the Aleinu, which you don't have here. Haya Adonai lemelech haaretz, Hayamahu yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. And we turn our thoughts to those who are no longer with us. I didn't see any yahrzeit this week. So I think we didn't have anybody recorded this week, but we think of those who passed away in the past year. Harry Kyle and Davis Wenkert and Jack Petsko, and the victims of the COVID-19 virus. They are in our minds and thoughts as well. And we go to the Mornis Kaddish. Those are Senate Kaddish. Please recite with me. Yitkadal
וישקדם,
שמי רבה.
בשמי רבה.
Amen.
ויאמר
ויאמר
דברך גדולתי וימליך מלכותי. וחייכון ומכון וחי לכל בית ישראל. רגלה בזמן
רגוע
קריב
בזמן קרים
ורמי.
ואמרומי.
יהי שמי
יהי
רבו
שמי
מבורך.
רבו
לעולם
מבורך.
ואומר
עולם
מהיה.
ועולם ועומר.
יבורך וישתבח ויפואר ויתרומם ויתנשא. יתהדר ויתעלה
ישדר
ויתהלל
וישרה
שמי קודשא
ישרו שמי
בריחו.
קודשא
אלא
בריחו.
מכל ברכתה
אין מכל
ושירתה.
ברכתה
תשבחתה
ושירתה. תשבחתה
ונחמתה דברי
ונחמתה.
ואמרו אמן.
ואמרו
יהי
אמן.
שלמה רבא מן
יהי
שמאי
שלמה רבא
בחיים
משמעי
עלינו ועל
חיים
כל ישראל
עלינו ועל
ברמי.
כל
עושה
ישראל
שלום
ברמי.
במרומה. הוא
עושה
יעשה שלום
שלום
עלינו ועל כל
במרומה.
ישראל
הוא
באמרו
יעשה שלום עלינו
amen.
ועל כל ישראל באמרו
And we're going to
אמן.
wrap up now our service with find it.
אדום עולם.
Don Olam.
אדום עולם.
And here we go. This is from the Chief Hazak of the Israeli Defense.
אדון עולם. אשר מלך. אשר מלך.
יציר נברא, לעת נסע, בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נסע בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה, והוא עובד, והוא יהיה, אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נסע בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, והוא אחד, ואין שני, וימשילוך, להבחירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז ועם ישראל, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נסע בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, והוא אלי, וחי גואלי, וצוק חבלי, וצרה, והוא ניסים, ומה נוספים, מנת קלוסי, ביום אקרא, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נסע בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, בידו, הפידוכי, בעת אישה, והעירה, ועם רוחי, גביעתי, אדוני שלי, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נסע בחפצו כל, אזי מלך, שמו
I love it. This is in Israel, right?
Yeah. These the
That's
chief
the idea,
captain
yeah.
of the Israeli Defense Forces, and just got a bunch of the other members of the probably the
They sound
choir,
like
the
choir. They sound
rabbinical choir, and they must have had a good dinner because they're still licking their fingers, I think.
Yeah.
There is a tenor among them.
Yes. It's the
Yeah,
guy in
yeah.
the middle.
The guy in the center of the table is their cantor. It's got the beautiful tones in his
Beautiful
voice.
voice.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, I'm going to put the stop share for a second so we can see each other. And Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Good
Shalom.
Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. We're going to go into our discussion now. There we go. So I'm recording this paragraph. I'm going to record the discussion section. Cantor, thank you so much for joining in the service.
Thank you for
Appreciate it.
joining.
Thank you.
Nice to
Thank
see
you.
you also. And yeah, I have on YouTube, I've got a list where I put up all these melodies that I've been picking up and so on. So you're welcome to come and take a look at them. It's under Hollywood. If you look at Hollywood Temple Bethel, no, I'll say no. It's actually under my own list. I'll send you the connection. Okay. So you can
Thank you,
look at it.
Rabbi. Thank you.
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah,
It's
'cause
so
I
good
keep
to
on
see
looking
you
for things.
guys.
Right.
So
My
good to-
problem is that when we come back in the flesh, I'm never going to be able to sing like all these guys sing. So we're going to try to, you know.
You don't need to, but you're
Rabbi,
fabulous.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
that was a terrific version of Adon Very uplifting. I hope you'll play it again.
Yeah. We can have that one. What's the melody? It's an American melody.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Yeah, it is. I don't know what it's from, but you know, it's a very typical American melody. That's it.
Good.
All right. So
All
our
right.
topic for the day yesterday was that day in December, which Jews never would say Christmas. Jews would say Xmas.
Yeah.
In Yiddish, they would say Nittelnacht. Nittel being a Yiddish variation of the Latin word for birth, nativity night, right? And so, and if you will never really get a Jew to say Jesus Christ properly. Why? Because
Christ is not a
translation
last
of
name.
Messiah, and that's the title we reserve for what we believe will be the Messiah. Yeah. So those are right, but we are part and parcel. The bulk of Jews, having lived in Christian society for the better part of 2,000 years, and being guilty of having created Christianity in the first place, if you want to put it that way, or being privileged for having created Christianity in the first place, right? Because it started with us. And actually, not for Christianity, in the Muslim world also, because there's no question that it also grew out of the milieu of the surrounding Christian neighbors of the Bedouin tribes of Arabia. So there were Jewish tribes there were Christian tribes there, and Muhammad was very much in touch with the Christian civilizations of Syria and Egypt. So he knew, and Ethiopia. So he knew what was going on, and adapted or the angel Jibril told him very much so, depending on the perspective that you want to give it. So we go into this question. Obviously, as Jews, very nice to say that we can take claim to Jesus. You know, I looked at the very first video. I had the guy singing Shochen Ad, and I look at him, you know, with the beard and the face. And, you know, if you ever look at any medieval paintings of Jesus, you say, oh, there's a good Jesus-looking figure, Jewish boy, right? When they weren't using blonde Scandinavians. So the Italians got the more Jewish look on him. So anyway, but I want to go into the other character that is really significant for us because it doesn't get enough credit. Also the Jewish fellow who basically, from a Jewish perspective, made Christianity, invented it. Because as far as we know, from our readings of the Christian scriptures, where we try as Jews to look at them, we see in the story of Jesus a guy who maybe was not in the mainstream of what we consider as traditional classic Judaism, but certainly was not that far off from the Judaism of his day, Jesus.
WWJD, what would Jesus do? Jesus would be a nice Jewish boy.
He'd be a good Jewish boy. Is my son the doctor, whatever. So we never want to put down, because I'm going to respect the perspectives of my Christian neighbors. I'm going to respect the perspective of my Muslim neighbors. But we want to know, where's the great difference then? Because as we're reading Jewish, especially as archaeology comes to light, Dead Sea Scrolls and what we know, also Josephus, we're looking at Josephus again and so on, and the world of that period, we recognize that obviously the Jesus community is growing out of a very Jewish milieu, but that is not yet Christianity. So we want to see, where does that come from? So I'm going to go to my key figure. I may not cover everything today. I may actually end up splitting this. I want to take us to this figure. I'm going to pull up the whole screen here for us, enlarge it. Let me see, can I get it larger? Will it enlarge for me? Okay, there we go. Saul of Tarsus. And nobody ever refers to Saul as Saul of Tarsus. It's always referred to as Paul, the apostle of the heathens. That's how in Christian sources it's usually described. What do I mean by apostle to the heathens? Jesus had 12 disciples. They are described as the apostles. And there's apostle meaning shaliach, an emissary. Chabad has shlichim. You all know them running around with the tefillin, catching everybody at airports. Meshulach or shaliach. And so apostle may be the Latin term for that. But Saul was never one of those original shlichim. He was later. And so he no longer came to preach to the Jews. He found his job in preaching to the Gentiles. So we want to go in, we need to understand really what was going on in the Judaism of its day, understand this change that this one Jew created that changed the fate of world history, more so than Jesus. As a Jew, I would say that. I can't say that to my Christian friends. For them, it's Jesus, the embodiment of the Spirit of God. So there's no question, but from a Jewish perspective, that's how I would see it. All right? And so when we are, as Jews, are debating with missionaries, Christian missionaries, usually they're coming from the classical old tack, Jesus the Messiah, based on verses such and such in the Bible. And then we will come back with Jesus not the Messiah based on certain conditions. The rabbis and centuries down in the centuries afterwards in Christian Jewish polemics said, look, there's no peace in the world, the animal's not lying down, the wolf is not lying down with the lamb, children of Israel have not yet been restored to the land of Israel. These are the things the Bible was talking about. None of that has happened. But that's not our real debate. And if we understand the sources, that's not where our real debate is. I mean, there are some small groups, we'll say splinter groups, the Jews for Jesus groups or Messianic Jewish groups that try to make the claim we're still trying to be Jews living as Jews, but we've just accepted as Jesus Messiah. But that is not Christianity. That is something very different in and of itself also. So we remember Christianity is a product of a very different Jew. So I'm going to use as my outline a summary of Saul, and his positions and where they come from and its importance, written in the Jewish Encyclopedia in 1906. You can get this for free online. You just type in jewishencyclopedia.com, and you have beautiful entries on everything Jewish up till the 1900s. And it is still considered the greatest academic work as a Jewish encyclopedia, greater than the ones that followed, like the Encyclopedia Judaica, which came out in the 70s, which you can still get. So if somebody went and put this online, great service. So you look up topics and so on. So this is from Kaufman Kohler. He is a leading Reform rabbi, and but not above, but also a great scholar in and of his own right. He was positing the strength of Judaism in the face of the dominant Christian civilization. And this is very interesting. Why would he want to do this? We usually think of Reform as assimilationist, but it is it's like Joseph is assimilated into Egyptian society, but he's emphasizing God. You're working out God's policy. We're working out God's plan. In other words, as much as he is outwardly the Egyptian, he is the Jew. And so what Reform was doing was saying, okay, outwardly we are like our neighbors, but we are at core Jews. And at core Jews, we have core differences with Christianity. And that's what he was saying. So he is in this essay very critical towards Paul, much more critical than later scholars would be, by the way. A little bit more among later scholars like my professor at the Hebrew University, David Flusser, looking for a bridge between Paul and the Jews, and trying to say that what Paul was doing was not break with Judaism in its entirety, but looking for a variant that would be that would bring in the Gentile world. Okay, so he's not interested in this, though. He is, like all Jews, educated Jews of his day, a classical 18th and 19th maskil, enlightened Jew, hostile to mysticism, hostile to the mysterious elements of religion, hostile to the faith-based emphasis of religion as Christianity is. Right? This is looking for a reason-based religion. He sees Judaism as a reason-based religion. And his sources, knowledge of sources, is very extensive. Christian scholars, Jewish scholars. What we also do know is that he was limited because the Dead Sea Scrolls had just been discovered, and there were just the beginnings of writings on the Dead Sea Scroll, not Dead Sea, I'm sorry, the Cairo Geniza. And the Cairo Geniza indeed does have documents that are very old, some going back to the 2nd, 3rd century after the year 0. And so they do shed some light on some of the Jewish movements of the period. But that itself, as I say, not enough information for him to go on. There was no yet Dead Sea Scroll either, for sure, nor also for the history of early Christianity, the discovery of documents at Nag Hammadi in Egypt. So what is Nag Hammadi in Egypt? This is a place where documents from the 1st and 2nd century Egyptian society were found. Some of these are early Christians. Some of these are documents from a movement that we know today as Gnosticism, G-N-O, Gnosticism, which means the secret knowledge. And this was a movement, it's not a central religion, but sort of a trend found in Greek, Babylonian, Egyptian, and Jewish circles. So we have to be aware of that. That also is a great figure in the development and the rise of Christianity, this whole movement. And some of it dates back before the time of Jesus. We know that Sea Scrolls, for example, have records that, although they're from time of, to a great extent, up to the time of the destruction of the Second Temple, material going back a good century, 2 centuries before, and talking about a teacher of righteousness who seems to have some of the characteristics of a Jesus figure. Another thing that we also do know, there are many such charismatic figures that arise in this period. And the one who is actually recorded in Jewish sources, and the best source is Josephus, is actually John the Baptist. So in Christian sources, John the Baptist is the announcer. He comes and he discovers Jesus, so to say, and at the Jordan, at the baptism. And he's considered then parallel to Elijah being the forerunner of the Messiah. But as Josephus shows us, there's no connection between John the Baptist and Jesus, and some of the records show that. It's rather that John the Baptist is an example of a charismatic figure, had tremendous following, calling for Jewish piety, calling for a return to personal piety and purity in behavior, and the action of baptism, being washed. What is baptism? The Greek word for tefillah b'mikveh, which is what every good Jew did in antiquity. When he wanted to go to the temple, he had to be baptized. That's right. He had to go to the mikveh to be cleansed. And so going back then, it was also the idea of going to the mikveh to be cleansed emotionally, not just from physical, not just from technical impurities. Hasidim still do it till today, also going to the mikveh. So we see some of these things that proceed. So now what happens? We know that come the year 35, somewhere give or take, this figure of Jesus is executed by the Roman authorities. And after his death, those who are his followers gather and continue in some of his practices and preachings, believing that he is indeed the messianic figure, waiting for him to come back. And they gather around them some Gentiles, because one of the things we don't appreciate is how widespread Judaism had become in the Greek and Roman world of this period. Certainly in the Mesopotamian world, because you had still large Jewish settlements from the first destruction of the temple, large and sizable. But it is in the Greek and the Roman world that you have this introduction to Judaism. It goes back to before the time of the Maccabees, where the Ptolemies of Egypt are fascinated. They order the translation of the Bible into Greek, right? The Septuagint. That's before the time of the Maccabees. And already Greek philosophers, after the conquest of Alexander, become introduced to Jews. And I'm very curious about Jews. And there's an interest in Jews. There's an interest in Judaism. And what historic demographers think is that by the time of the end of the First Temple period, 1/10 of the Roman Empire was Jewish or followers of Judaism. It was not necessarily formally Jewish, but had adopted Jewish practice customs, particularly among women, because they felt that there was security in the Jewish concept of the woman that they did not find in the Greek or the Roman world. So we have this groundworks where we have now non-Jews fascinated by Judaism, fascinated by the image of Judaism, but sort of feeling on the outs. And some of them gather around this early Jewish community. So now what happens? Here's the interesting part. So we go ahead, and I'll give you some quotes from Paul, because there are some parts in Paul that in his writing style and so on, it's a writing style that we're not familiar with.
And by the way, I don't think about Paul when I'm doing mikvah.
John the Baptist.
John.
You think of John the Baptist.
John when I'm doing.
Yeah,
Paul.
but John the Baptist.
I'm in the mikvah.
John the Baptist ends with his head on a platter. You know that.
That's not a good day.
No. But it's not Herod, the famous Herod. It's another Herod, Herod Antipas, who's the one who has his head. And very simply, it's because John the Baptist is a political threat to the leadership, and it's sometime after actually Jesus is crucified that happens. That's the theory. So anyway, there are some beautiful things from Paul. I'd like to give him credit, like this one on love. Paul's very big on the concept of love. And so let love be genuine, hate what is evil, hold fast to what is good, love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor, never flag in zeal, be aglow with the Spirit, serve the Lord, rejoice in your hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer, contribute to the needs of the saints, and practice hospitality. Right? He's coming in, he's building up his community. He wants the community to blend together, and he uses this love of each other, fellow love. I think agape is the word that's used in this in the Greek. I think caritas. Out of caritas we get charity, right? Just as an aside, the English word for tzedakah is charity, right? But charity comes from the Latin caritas. You do it because you love the other person. That's actually closer to gemilut chasadim, acts of loving kindness. Whereas the word tzedakah in Jewish sources is justice. You have to do it. I'm not worried about, again, sort of typical of classic rabbinic thought. I'm not worried about your mood. I'm not worried about your emotions. I want to know what you do. Paul is a Jew of the diaspora. He's from Tarsus. That's very important to know. Where is Tarsus? It's in Turkey, modern Turkey. And he's raised as a Jew, but in a very Greek milieu. So in a Greek milieu, mood and idea is very important. In the Jewish classic rabbinic milieu, it's what you do, right? There's a shift here. Watch. But anyway, let's go ahead. Again, another famous quote. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or clanging cymbal. Right? No matter how saint I am, if I don't have love inside, I'm just a loud noise. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship, that I may boast, but I do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, not easily angered, keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. And this is a very famous quote here. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Right? You'll sometimes see it quoted as faith, hope, and charity. What they mean is love. Right? I can't argue, right? I can't argue. It's a very powerful statement, and I want to give, there's certain things in Paul that certainly as Jews we have no quarrel with. But then where's Paul's specific points? He's the one who is now looking at the death and resurrection of Jesus as the central element of human existence. And he talks about resurrection of the dead. All this is coming from Corinthians, just if you know your books. He's got Acts of the Apostles, then there's certain letters to the Romans, letters to the Corinthians, to the Galatians, not Galatianos, but Galatians. And so if there's no resurrection of the dead, then not even Christ has been risen. If Christ has not been raised, our preaching is worthless, and so is your faith, right? You must have faith that Christ death, that's very central to him. If he did not raise it, in fact, the dead are not resurrected, that is, again, the central faith element. If you do not have the faith that Christ was redeemed from death, then nothing is worth it. Right? Now we're coming into the shift. Now is another shift in this thinking. This is actually not from Paul, but later on, 1500 years later, Martin Luther. Martin Luther was a Catholic monk who was disgusted by the Catholic Church selling what they called dispensation. $1,000 and 1,000 Hail Marys and you're okay. All right? So he realized that they were getting out of bound. What was the Catholic Church emphasizing? The Catholic Church did not want to split completely with its Jewish roots on the idea of mitzvot ma'asiyot. Did not want to split completely. Catholic Church, and still will say, our roots are Semitic. Today, they'll use that term. Did not want to split completely. And at least in the area of certainly moral mitzvot, seen as obligations or personal obligations or sacraments, they're obligations you got to do. Luther felt that was an obstacle, and Luther went back to Paul. So if we understand modern European history, because Luther undid the Catholic Church, undid its control on society, and made possible all the revolutions of Europe, it isn't going back to Paul. So you see how this guy influenced things in modern history. So Luther goes to Paul, based on Paul says, be a sinner and sin boldly, or sin more strongly. Right? You're going to do it, then enjoy it. But believe and rejoice in Christ even more boldly. In other words, that it's not that he's encouraging sin, but he is saying that the faith is so much more powerful. That's where he takes it. And of course, then his example is he's going to go and marry. Because from Paul, the church, and not just Paul, the church had a perspective that marriage was for the unredeemable other people, but you're going to be on the top, you're one of the clergy, you have to be above and beyond sex. So no, he had married clergy, right? And that was an example, because that could not disqualify a person from salvation or from being of a higher level, right? So that's Luther going back to Paul. And so now we can see how modern history, without Luther, there's no Protestant Reformation taking over Europe. There's no American ethos. There is none of the spirit of revolution, because it's with Luther that comes also the translation of the Bible into German and the first revolutions in Germany in his time. but he had to turn against him because they threatened to undermine what he was doing. But its big push was from him. So now let's go to Kaufman Kohler, okay, and some of his summaries. And we'll probably take some today, and maybe then we'll finish next week. There's a lot of material. We'll see. So now, here's how Kohler introduces Paul, the actual founder of the Christian church, as opposed to Judaism, right? So about the year 10, and dies around the year 63, right? So we do not know the exact documents of Paul and Paulinism, right? That's one of the problems that we have, that nobody was recording and saving the paper records or the papyrus records or the parchment records. And then on top of that, and this is true of the Christian scriptures, they've been colored by the writers of the 2nd century who wanted to paper over the disagreements and disputes and create an official document that would now be the document of the newly established church. And that is happening in the 2nd century, right? Year 100, 110, 120, and so on. And some of the documents then that are in the New Testament definitely are not from Paul, that we know, for example. One of the things that we also know is that at one point, the early Christian church discussed the possibility of getting rid of what we call the Old Testament, getting rid of their roots in Judaism completely. And so there's a great Christian thinker by the name of Marcion who said that we're going to throw it all away. This is an entirely new religion. Now, they were rejected. This church, as it's coming to shape, could not reject its biblical roots. So let's go ahead. What do we know about him? I say his name, he's born as Saul. But in the neighborhood where he grew up, it's a Greek neighborhood, Greek-Roman neighborhood. Tarsus is an area of Cilicia, middle of Turkey. Born of Jewish parents, right? So his neighbors called him Paul, and the parents gave him the name Saul at his bris. Saul, Shaul. And he liked to say that he was a descendant of Saul of the tribe of Benjamin, although there's no indication that he really was that, couldn't really prove it. One of the debates is that he claimed to be a Pharisee. By the time he was born, that had become the popular mode of Judaism, and it started to spread in the Greco-Roman world as well. He then said at some point he decided to go to the land of Israel and continue where he could fulfill his mitzvot and learn more Torah. And he made a claim that, or it is written of him, that he was a student of Gamliel, Rabban Gamliel. It is the follower, is either the son or the grandson of Hillel. The Talmud has a reference to Gamliel having a student who is a heretic. We're not sure. Kaufman says that the way that Paul writes, his quotations are not, the way they're worded are not based on the Hebrew text as we have it, but from the Greek text. Much more so, is much more fluent in Greek thought than in rabbinic thought. That is how Kohler says it. So he says unlikely that actually would sit at the school of Rabban Gamliel. He may have wanted to do it, or maybe it's his own later centuries may have wanted to reflect that connection, and that may have been how it comes into the Talmud, because that source would have been written much later. So his thinking is entirely a Hellenist in thought and sentiment. I don't want to use the word pagan. When we use the word pagan, we think of guys just putting up offerings to idols and doing whatever he wants to, because that's what the pagan gods want. The Greeks and the Romans were becoming much more sophisticated. They were aware of thinkings coming out of the Greek schools of Athens and the schools of Aristotle and Plato being probably more popular really overall. And so their thinking is much more in line with that, and rather than what you might call old-fashioned paganism. Yeah. It is a Hellenistic perspective, and see the quote I put in the highlight. The whole creation groans for liberation from the prison house, the body, from its earthly existence, which becomes pollution by sin and death is intrinsically evil. This is a perspective of Paul. It's a perspective of what I mentioned earlier, what is called Gnostic. You see this word I have also, Gnostic, Gnostic lore. And this is a movement which sees our human existence as a tragedy. Our life existence is some scheme created by an evil God. And what we need to do is to escape from it. And as I say, there are a lot of Jewish groups involved in it, Greek groups, Babylonian, Egyptian. And so it gets the name of Gnosticism. And in the Jewish groups that grew up around it, first is an antagonism to Torah and to the God of the Torah in these groups. The law ties me down. Who is it that gives me the law? The God of the Torah. Who is the hero? Cain. Not Abel, but Cain is the hero. Who is the hero in the Garden of Eden? The serpent. The serpent tried to redeem Adam from the God that created him. Right? That's this kind of thinking. The God of creation is a second-class God in this kind of thinking. Is the word they use is demiurge, which means a shaper. Beyond the true God of Rome is perfection. Right? These are, as I say, groups that are coming around this time period in the century before, the century after. One of the greatest rabbis we know, which is about 50 years after Paul, abandoned Judaism. And one of the theories, he was influenced by these groups. Elisha ben Abuya, and he's the teacher of Rabbi Meir, and was a colleague of Rabbi Akiva. And he is known in all rabbinic sources as Acher, meaning the other one. Didn't want to say his name. So Tuf, the other one said. And Rabbi Meir is unique in that he still studies under Elisha ben Abuya even after he has betrayed rabbinic Judaism. We're not sure what his direction is, because he may also have just gone in the direction of Greek Stoicism, atheism, without any kind of theology. Quite possible also. But the possibility is that he's caught up in this. So here's this kind of faith that is very popular, as I say, around the Greek and Roman world. And it has its impact in Jewish groups as well. Let's see if I can get this good on. Okay. So here's a new group. Here's a new faith. It's half pagan and half Jewish. Right? Mm-hmm. And right, Paul is affected by it. Right? And these are elements that are, as I say, different from Jewish thought, or in the Jewish circles, antagonistic completely. And notice what Kohler says here. For Judaism, religion is the hallowing of this life by the fulfillment of its manifold duties. Right? Classic rabbinic position. This life is sacred. It's made sacred by our actions. This is what one of my teachers said. This is what we call normative mysticism. It is not the mysticism to escape life. It is the mysticism to enhance life with the sacred. That's the key in Judaism. Paul is being influenced by these other trends of thought. Paul shrank from life as the domain of Satan and all his hosts of evil. He longed for redemption by the deadening of all desires for life and strove for another world in which he saw his ecstatic visions. Right? Over and over again in Paul's writings, he talks about the impossibility of picking ourselves up by one's own actions. Very central to Paul's thinking. A great break with Jewish thought. So now, go ahead. Let's say.
Was Paul married, Rabbi?
No. And he has a split attitude towards marriage. On one sense, he has a very beautiful quotation I didn't bring in, and it's usually misquoted. He says in the family, Just as Jesus is the head of the church, so the husband is the head of the family, the wife listens to the husband. But then he continues and says the husband must love the wife, the wife must love the right. It's a mutual love. He's coming to that. So in that sense, he seems to be enhancing and howling the idea of marital life. But then he has another line which says it is better to be married than to burn in hell. In other words, because you're human and because you're bound by your human body, you're going to be burnt up by this passion. So at least let's engage it in marriage, because that's what. But if you don't have it, if you don't have to get married, don't get married. And that has its influence in the Christian, in the Catholic Church.
Oh no.
Right. The Catholic Church is not completely celibate. Its leadership till much later, but it has influence. By the way, it's not just Paul.
Took her off.
It is in Jewish groups. The Dead Sea Scroll groups are celibate. They're completely separate communities for the men, separate communities for the women. They do not mix. They do not marry. Right? There are no what we call Dead Sea Scroll Jews anymore because of that. Right? No marriage, no children. Boom, they're dead end. They vanished. Somewhere around shortly after the destruction of the first temple, they just vanished. They probably, in all probability, blended into the early Christian community. That's the theory. Community called the Ebionites in Greek and Roman sources, from the Hebrew word evion, meaning poor. Poor not in money, but poor in giving up one's wealth and possessions and so on in that sense. So, Paul is not anti-Jews, but he becomes anti-Judaism. Let's put it that way. So,
Same thing.
his conception of life is Jewish. You look at it, it says his unparalleled animosity and hostility to Judaism, as voiced in the epistles, can be accounted for only on the assumption while born a Jew, he was never in sympathy or in touch with the doctrines of the rabbinical schools. In other words, Paul says in his introduction to the people that he's preaching to that he is raised as a Pharisee. But the way he talks, Kohler says, does not indicate somebody who really believed it. He may have been familiar with it, he may have dabbled in it, but it did not talk to him. Didn't talk to him, right? Now, later we'll see, is it that he really meant this for everyone or only for the Gentiles? That's still under debate. Let's go a little bit into his personality. All right, personality-wise, this is a man who eventually bent the world to his thinking. Think about it. Of a fiery temper, impulsive and impassioned, effusive and excessive alike in his love and in his hatred. Either loves people tremendously or is lambasting them. His blessings and his curses. Possessed a marvelous power over men and had unbounded confidence in himself. The philosopher and the Jew will greatly differ from him with regard to every argument and view, but will admit he is a mighty battler for truth. All right? He puts his life on line. He's executed by the Romans later on. And his view of life, of man and God, profoundly serious one. The entire conception of religion certainly been deepened by him because his mental grasp was wide and comprehensive, his thinking bold, aggressive, and searching, sometimes systematic. Indeed, he molded the thought and belief of all Christendom. I think that the parallel to Paul in Jewish circles is with the story of Shabbat Tzvi. In other words, you have a charismatic figure under Jesus. Jesus is dead, and there's no message out of that per se yet. Paul creates a message. And the same thing, as I say, the one parallel we have is with Shabbat Tzvi. Shabbat Tzvi, around 1600s, is a very charismatic figure, possibly what we would understand bipolar mentality, very up and very down, engaged in bizarre acts, be dancing with the Torah and then married a prostitute, things, very bizarre acts, very weird. And it bothered him, and he knew that he wasn't well. So he went to the great Kabbalistic thinker of his day, Nathan of Gaza. Yeah, Gaza today, there's not a single Jew alive in Gaza today, right? At that time, Gaza was, and still remained for a long time, a large settlement of Jews in the land of Israel. And so Nathan of Gaza is there. This Shabbat Tzvi comes to him. He comes down from Jerusalem to Gaza, and Nathan looks at him and says, "Aha, you are the embodiment of the Mashiach, the Messiah." And it is Nathan of Gaza who looks at this personality of Shabbat Tzvi and creates an entire theology around him, in which, by engaging in bizarre acts, Shabbat Tzvi is liberating the world from the Nitzutzot HaKodesh, the sparks of divinity that were trapped inside the realm of the dark side, the evil side, the Sitra Achara. You have to go into Kabbalistic thought. But why do I say this? Because out of this guy, Nathan of Gaza, that now a new concept of Judaism arises, so that Shabbat Tzvi goes and becomes a Muslim, and Nathan of Gaza can explain it as part of this mysterious battle against the forces of evil. All right. So again, you have the figure, and then you have the preacher, the ideologist who is building a whole structure, a complete new structure. That's the closest we can have. Okay. Why was Jesus? Paul came in then to the Jewish community. The story around it is that he's going to, he hangs around with the Pharisaic circles. They want to persecute the early Christians. This is what Paul says. And they send him on a mission to arrest someone. And he's going on his way to Damascus. And all of a sudden in Damascus, he has the vision, and it is the vision of Jesus. And suddenly he becomes a believer. Whatever the case may be, was he really a rabbinic Jew, not really a rabbinic Jew in the first place? He looks at the church around him, or the early Jewish Christian synagogue, whatever we call it, and he sees the Jewish followers, and he sees non-Jews who are beginning to hang in. And to the Jewish followers, he realizes he doesn't have any message. To the Gentile followers, he realized that maybe he's got something to them, and he focuses on them. Now, where did these non-Jews come from? Jesus, who is a Jewish nationalist, very much in the New Testament, is angry at the Pharisees. And he says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to win a single convert. When you have succeeded, you make him twice as much a child of hell as you are." Oh, so Pharisees are the dominant Jewish force of his day. Jesus sets himself against them because they're not good enough. They're hypocritical in his eyes. And you're going to go and convert Gentiles to Judaism. He has another line where a pagan, there's a pagan woman who comes to him. She needs him to create a miracle. And at first he says, it is not fit to throw food to the dogs. That's how he responds to the Gentile, to the pagan. Then she says, but you. And he says, okay, because you believe in me, so I will heal you. We understand this. Underlying is a strong Jewish nationalism. With that kind of attitude, you're not going to make it in the Gentile world, right? So Paul is looking at this question. He sees these hanger-on. And what is going to bring them into the fold? The big obstacle is mitzvot, masiyot, obligations of Judaism. Judaism has very difficult obligations, right? He finds that many Gentiles have accepted much of Jewish practice, but not all. So also Gentile women in particular. It was easier for a Gentile woman to become a Jew because she didn't have to undergo circumcision as an adult, and that can be a big pain, right? So Kohler himself says the Gentiles were coming to Judaism anyway. Why did we need to change Judaism to do it?
Don't do it.
Right? This is what Paul was trying to do was to eliminate this different status for the proselyte. for the Gentile who came into the Jewish ranks.
Yeah.
So he would make sure that the Gentile would rank equally with other members. The marks of distinction with Jew and Gentile have to be wiped out. You have to eliminate any distinction. And those mitzvot masiot then become an obstacle, right? That's part of the factor that goes into his thinking. So Paul fashioned a Christ of his own, a church of his own, system belief of his own. And he had mythological and Gnostic elements in his theology, appealed more to the non-Jew than to the Jew. He won the heathen world to his beliefs. Right? There's his standing. Let me see how far we're going. I've got a lot of other notes here, so I'm not going to take the full hour, but I'm going to leave you sort of hanging at this point. You start to see this split. So we talk about the significance, talk about a Jewish world bringing or exposing itself to the Gentile world, to the Greek and Roman world. Ideas from the Greek and Roman world coming into Jewish circles. And we'll see now how Paul will come in next week. We'll go into this next week. What is the big change? What is the big shift that he makes? And so we'll just follow up because there's a lot to do. I mean, we're setting up an entirely new civilization. So you can't set up a new civilization and explain it in just the time we have. So we're going to go on to that. Any questions up to this point? All right.
Good job.
Huh?
Good job. Thank you.
Okay. So next week, I'm going to go back into finish up with Paul. Then after that, I'm going to go to the first real Jewish philosopher, Saadia Gaon, that nobody knows about, more so than Philo of Alexandria. And then we're hitting mid-January, go into Tu B'Shvat.
Yay!
Also. That's right. So we'll all pretend we're eating B'Shvat. And then we'll follow through from that. Okay, so I'm going to close this down. As I said, we'll follow up next week on the rest of it.
Shabbat shalom all.
Okay, to everybody, Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay. Anybody want to go on and have any other discussions? You're welcome
Shabbat
to.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Simon. Yeah.
Shabbat
Shimon,
shalom,
Simon.
Adam.
Yeah, they're good. Yoni, you want to carry it on from here, or? Oh, you're on the mute.
Oh, shoot.
Huh? Yeah. Yoni, you want to take over if anybody wants to chat on?
Shabbat shalom, Yoni.
You're on,
Shalom, everybody.
Yoni's on silent. Okay. All right. So if that's the case, we'll call it for this Shabbat. Thursday, no hard drink.
Gone.
Huh?
I think Yoni is gone.
Yeah, okay. No hard drinking, please.
I could not hear what the Gabbai said.
I have a question. Okay, if we drink hard and let's say we get arrested for drunk driving, I know our courts aren't meeting either, right? There's no jury duty nowadays.
I think they're doing trials, virtual trials. I think they're able to do some kind of trials.
Because I understand there's no jury selection these days.
No. But I think they can do some kinds of trials. There's certain cases where we don't need a jury. By the way, on partying, I have to tell you this. I sort of get it off my chest. Take these isolation rules seriously. On my street, there was a party last Sunday evening. Somebody hosted, and I know the couple, traditional young Orthodox couple with children, and they must have had some kind of gathering of family and friends, and it was going on a little bit too loud and maybe too many people. And 11 o'clock at night, which is past the curfew of 10 o'clock, the fire alarm went off in our building. Fire alarm went off in our building, so ambulance comes, fire alarm comes, fire trucks come, and they discover there are too many people gathered in this building. And suddenly police show up, and maybe somebody complained about it, there was too much noise. And all of a sudden I'm looking out the window and I see the two young couple. Everybody's being let out of the building. They're being handcuffed, back to the police car while they're being frisked. And the looks like SWAT teams with rifles out and so on. They probably cursed the day they thought of doing this. So please do take these rules seriously and carefully, and do not mess with police. I don't care what the story is about police and ethnic. If you're out of line, you're out of line. There was another case on my block a few months ago where some woman was knocking on somebody's door, and somebody felt that she was harassing them, called the police. And so instead of talking to the police nicely and going along, she was screaming and shouting and arguing, and she was on the ground. They talked to her about an hour, nicely, very patiently, and suddenly she started screaming and shouting and resisting them, and they put her on the ground. They had 5 officers sitting on top of her. So you see how easily that could get out of line. How easily.
But
So,
usually
I just tell her, please play careful with the police.
Yeah. Usually in synagogues, they got people that are lawyers or attorneys or judges and stuff like that. And as far as I know, if you get arrested now, you're going to stay in jail longer, because as far as I know, a lot of our court system, our criminal justice system is on limbo right now.
Right. Except your DA now, your new DA lets everybody off.
Right.
You know that. Gascon. By the way, he had to retract his first edict about the parolees because his own, the deputy DAs under him got on his back because he said, you're letting child molesters out, and he had to undo. I don't know how we voted him in. So anyway, what can I tell you? Please
people just got angry at Lacey, the former DA. We just got very angry at her because her husband,
there was a problem with him.
He waved a weapon at protesters that were marching past his home.
I don't think that was what really did the vote. No, it was that Gascon promised everybody, I'm going to clear the jails, I'm going to redeem everybody, we're going to, everything is good. Do you know that and I see this, they don't persecute, if you have shoplifted less than $900 from a store, $925 from a store, they're not going to go after you. And so I see people shoplifting. I watch it in stores. They walk out the stores. They can kick them out of the store. They can't call the police and do anything. That's, it's one of the problems that we have. Serious problems.
But as I understand it, nowadays people are shoplifting loaves of bread and stuff like that. They're not.
This is before the virus. You know what? Before with the virus, and some people are in desperate straits, even with the homeless. They're more. I can understand, but before the virus, no excuse. There was no. There's food. It wasn't what they were shoplifting for. It was very nice cosmetics. I saw it in my own eyes. So the guard went after her, so she ran around the corner, dropped the basket, and left. She wasn't going to fight about it, but I saw it. So anyway, all of us stay well, stay safe. We had this tragic scene in Nashville where someone committed newspapers have not yet reported.
It reminds me of Oklahoma City back in the 90s when the federal building got bombed in Oklahoma City.
Similar, because he used a truck bomb.
Tim McVeigh guy.
Right.
That's what it reminds me of, leaving a truck with explosives and just, that's what it reminds me of.
Told everyone to
so he knew, whoever did it, I assume, knew there were not going to be a lot of civilians around because it was Christmas morning. The report was that there was sounds of shooting, so police were drawn to the area. So maybe the idea was to create a trap to attack police. Possible, but who knows? It's hard to know. What was apparently, first, was one of the officers there on the scene looked at the art view and he saw something that raised a suspicion, and he warned people not to go near, and then it went off. So that spared probably a lot of lives. But we have this season. Look, we remember the Unabomber, the guy who had the manifesto, its ideological manifesto. Right. So you've got people who are absolutely convinced of their absolute righteousness, and in the course of their absolute righteousness, create absolute evil. That's probably the most dangerous. The guy who robs and kills because he wants your money or something like that, at least you can understand. but the one who says, I'm doing it because I'm going to save you, right? I'm going to save society. That's maybe the bigger danger always. Okay, so with that, let's have a safe and happy year and a healthy year. And 2021, hopefully a year of
I don't want to spend any more.
safety and recovery for everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. Thanks.